welcome to the Europe Regional Forum. Thank you everybody here for joining us. So just kind of as a friendly reminder, unless you're speaking or unless you're an ASL interpreter, your screen is off, and that way it'll make it easier for access for all. And let me just kind of start by talking about what do we mean by regional forums. The idea of this session is to give people a chance to learn a little bit more about a region, or more specifically countries in a region, by talking with and by sharing about, by talking with people who have either lived there or who have traveled there. Of course, we have this titled as a Europe Forum, but in reality, this might not exactly be a full broad Europe forum. So I just kind of want to communicate that Europe is a very diverse region full of many different countries and many different languages and cultural systems. And so what we're going to get today is kind of a sampling of what Europe is by hearing from our panelists, who they're going to talk to you shortly. But we've got here Abigail Lehner, who did an internship in Germany, Elizabeth Edgel, who was a FLEX student, I believe last year. FLEX is a program for high school students to spend a year in the US, people from formerly Soviet Union countries. She's from Estonia. And we've got Vibhu Sharma, who a woman from India who studied, earned a master's degree in the United Kingdom. So you're going to hear their perspectives on Estonia, the United Kingdom, and Germany. But the other thing is, we hope that you will also share your perspectives too. If you are somebody who lives in the European region, any country within the European region, broadly defined, or if you're somebody who's traveled there, we also hope that you'll be able to chime in with some thoughts as we go over some of these questions. And if you would like to share a thought about, or if you'd like to answer one of the questions that I pose here to the panelists, please message Joey Lenny using the chat feature, and she can convey your message. Or also, you can simply say that you have a comment, and I think that we can also unmute you and have you speak if that's something that you would like to do as well. Or also, for example, if you'd like to sign your answer. And the other thing too is, of course, if you have a question, please also chat that to Joey Lenny. So first, I kind of gave a little bit of a hint of who we've got here on the phone on the meeting, but why don't we go ahead and open it up to our panelists? And I think what I'll go ahead and do is I'll start with Elizabeth Edgel from Estonia. Elizabeth, maybe you could kind of give us an introduction to yourself and kind of briefly a couple things people might not know about your country, and also if you've lived in any other countries within Europe.
Hello everyone. So my name is Elizabeth Edgel, and I was a FLEX student during the 2018-2019 school year, and I spent the year in the United States. After I attended the FLEX program, I have been active with the alumni community in Tallinn, which is the capital of Estonia, and I organize different volunteering activities for that community. And I also volunteer as an English teacher at the local American English Conversation Club. And some things about Estonia. Estonia is located in the northeastern Europe. We have about 1.3 million people, and what we are really known for is our technology and electronics. So for example, Skype has been developed here, and we're also very well known for our electronic elections, as well as other government services that are conducted online.
Thanks, Elizabeth. You mentioned electronic elections. Is that pretty accessible for you? I think you're a person who's blind, right? How is that
Yes.
accessibility-wise?
Accessibility-wise, it is generally very good. There do tend to be glitches when the system is updated, but as someone with a disability, when the disability community responds back, these glitches do tend to be fixed. rather quickly.
That's really interesting. Yeah, for me as a blind person, that voting is one accessibility issue I experience, and I lived in a region where we had voting machines, and where we live now, it's all filling out an online form, but you still have to print it out and mail it in. So that's kind of different experiences across the board in our country with that. Maybe some things we could learn from other places. Abigail Lehner, why don't you tell us about yourself? And I'm also mention too about your disability also.
Absolutely. So, sorry, my name is Abby. I am 24 years old. I have spinal muscular atrophy, which is a neurological disorder that affects my muscle strength. So I use a wheelchair full time. And I've been collaborating with my USA for a while now. Back in 2017, I completed an internship in Berlin, Germany, and I was a university student at the University of New Hampshire. Obviously trying to learn about travel and how to go to a foreign country as a person with a disability was interesting. So I reached out to my USA to look for some resources. I was thankful enough to have Justin support me through my travel experiences in Berlin. I was doing an internship there, and I also had personal care assistants accompany me during my trip, and it was an absolutely incredible learning experience. And since then, I have continued to travel throughout different parts of Europe. I live in the United States now and do quite a bit of travel within my own country. So I'm excited to be here, answer any questions, and discuss a little bit more about my experiences traveling as a person with a disability.
Abby, when I talked to you before, you told me something about your relationship with Germany that I was pretty surprised by, and maybe you could share a brief word about that.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were questioning why I wanted to go to Germany. I had been learning to speak German for about 6 years because my grandparents were actually German as well. During the war, they came to the United States, and I was able to learn a little bit about their heritage, but not quite know a lot about it. They passed away before I was able to communicate because I was like 2 or 3 years old. So I was really interested in going back to Germany, especially to kind of delve into some family history and do a little bit of inner soul searching there. And I really hope to be going back there as soon as I can.
Thanks, Abby. And just to kindly remind everybody that Joey Lenny has shared a link to the captions stream in case you would like to have more. I know the captions view through Zoom can be a bit narrow. So just a note that you can click on that link and it will show you a wider version of the caption stream. And as well, you can chat questions or comments to Joey Lenny. Vibhu, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you came to have your experience in Britain?
I am from India. This is where I was born and brought up. I studied from childhood to undergrad there, and then I moved to the UK and moved to Scotland and UK for my master's degree, and now I'm based in New York, serving at the United Nations. To answer the question, how was my experience in Britain studying my master's? I have to say it was wonderful because I felt in comparison to the other country that I had experienced, which was obviously India, I felt that as a person with disability or your needs arising from your disability were much better responded to. And also there was less discrimination on the basis of disability than what it could be in some of the other places I have seen. So yeah, and I'm happy to answer any more questions.
You found that there was less disability discrimination as you were considering approaching studying in the United Kingdom.
That's correct. Yeah.
I wonder if you could, that kind of is a great actually springboard into approximately what is my next question, which is, how did you find the disability culture to be? And maybe also if you happen to know anything about the legal frameworks in the United Kingdom for people with disabilities.
Sure, that's a wonderful question. So I studied in Scotland. I mean, we know that when we talk about the UK, it covers England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. I can talk more about Scotland. Now, Scotland has a wonderful system as far as the legal framework or education system is concerned, because they follow English laws, they follow European laws, and they follow their own Scottish laws. One thing which is very strongly emphasized in Scotland as far as the education system is concerned is the reasonable accommodation, which they see as additional supports to learning. And now because they have this kind of legal framework, it's almost understood that persons with disabilities would require certain reasonable accommodations, and it's the responsibility of the institution that you are studying in or that you are working with to respond to those accommodation needs. Now, of course, you have to justify what you need and why you need it. But the best part is that your requirements are understood, and people are generally more accepting to respond to your needs rather than arguing against them or suggesting an alternative. So for example, if you say, well, being a person with visual impairment, I require a screen reader on my computer so that I can work independently, they are more ready to accept it than just telling you, oh, no, we will provide you somebody who can read using your text. So that's one good thing about it.
That makes sense. I mean, I think the UK is actually a country I've come to learn quite a lot about, because in case anybody is interested in learning more about it, the BBC actually has this really interesting podcast called BBC Ouch, and OUCH. And it's essentially all disability talk shows. They usually put out at least 2 or so podcasts per week. And I've learned so much about UK disability culture through that. And it's, I mean, kind of what you describe is sounds a little familiar to the US, though I have heard that kind of one distinction in the UK, or maybe even in the larger European system. It'd be interesting to hear if any of our other panelists might have a comment about this, and I'll be directing Vibhu's question to both of you as well. But I have heard and sort of observed that in Europe, well, in the US, we tend to think about disability rights more strictly maybe from a legal framework or from a civil rights framework, whereas in Europe, there's a little more focus on like economic rights, for a lack of a better descriptor. And in like countries like the UK, for example, have, I don't know, like benefits, like the personal, like these financial allowance benefits. I forgot exactly what the word is. I think it used to be called PIP, but I think they changed it. That essentially you get regardless of whether you're working or not. Like there's essentially this idea that having a disability is more expensive even when you have a job. And so you sort of extra state support comes regardless. And of course, there's also the healthcare system. So I don't know, like Abby, do you have a thought about that from your Germany experience?
It's tough to speak to my experience in Germany personally, because when I traveled there, it was only for 2 months. So I didn't really have to research the social system because I was there as an American university student and I didn't require a visa. In my personal endeavors now, I am delving into quite a bit of extensive research of how an American citizen can relocate and actually move to Germany while also receiving state benefits, I found it a bit difficult. So if anyone in this webinar today has any more information about how an American citizen can benefit from disability services in Germany or even any country in Europe, that would be great, because it's tough, because I think that, you know, as a US citizen, I was born in a country, and now that I'm a citizen here and I am permanently disabled, there is a structure that's been created for that type of situation. However, navigating, relocating to a different country and getting those same benefits without citizenship can be tricky. So I guess that's one perspective that I've been thinking about recently. But as far as knowing what that structure is in Germany, I'm still trying to figure that out myself.
Thanks, Abby. And for people who might not know about this, kind of why some of this can matter so much, for people with severe disabilities that require personal care attendant services or durable medical equipment, those things can be really expensive. And I believe in many developed countries, you get state support to pay for those if you're not employed. In the United States, for example, if you get a job, your prospects can change quite a bit. In certain states, it's kind of a patchy framework from state to state, what kind of support you're still eligible for. But generally the risk across the board is that you get into your first job earning 40,000 or 50,000 a year, and the next thing is you're saddled with 30,000 or 35,000 of personal care attendant costs or durable medical equipment expenses, essentially canceling out any benefit you would derive from working. That can be a big issue for certain people with disabilities. Abby, like maybe you could just broadly share though, what was it like getting accommodations on your program? And this can be related to Germany or it can be related to CIEE, your exchange provider. Either one's fine.
Yeah, so I'll kind of briefly graze over the entirety of my
And also
experience.
maybe thinking about too accessibility as far as like how you encountered Berlin and everything.
Sure. So to give a little bit more background about my internship program, it was sponsored through CIEE, which is the Council on International Educational Exchange. And they had a internship program in Berlin. So I was kind of the guinea pig because they had never had a student with a physical disability study at their location in Berlin, Germany. So it was interesting because I did have to do a lot of research about how I would find accessible housing, how I would make sure I could have a personal care assistant come with me, and also just navigating travel in a new country as a person who uses a wheelchair. So I currently live in New Hampshire in the United States and am on Medicaid. So that is the state program that allows me funding for personal care assistance. And I had to develop a contract with the company I use to hire and pay my personal care assistants, basically saying that I was allowed to take these care assistants with me on this trip to Germany because it served for educational purposes. CIEE was absolutely amazing in making sure I was well accommodated. They were able to finance the flights for both my PCAs to come with me. And at the university, or at the center that I was living at, they made sure that I had a wheelchair accessible room, which was really great. I think that the biggest struggle as far as accessibility goes was finding a wheelchair accessible internship location. I think coming from the perspective of someone with a physical disability, I probably interviewed 6 different companies for an internship position. Oh, wow. And every single place wanted to hire me, but only one place had wheelchair access. So I was very limited in my choices of where I wanted to do my internship, just based on the fact that there weren't a lot of accessible buildings for me to access. But as far as all other accommodations of the entirety of my internship went, CIEE was super, super great about making sure I had equal access to all the programming.
Thank you. Wow, that's that's actually really interesting what you share. I mean, I think, you know, we can assume, you know, when you're going to, I mean, Germany is a pretty wealthy country, and yet still you encountered some difficulties with physical accessibility. And I mean, it just goes to show though, like, it's study abroad. You know, sometimes people think about going to developed or kind of wealthier countries as kind of more of a sure thing, but you can still encounter accessibility barriers. So it's just something to think about as you prepare. And I mean, I guess too, I mean, for many people you encounter, I mean, you probably have encountered barriers like that in the US too, right, Abby? So it's just part of what comes with it. Joey, Lenny, have you seen any questions or comments in the chat?
Yes, actually. There's someone here from Indonesia, and she wants to ask everyone, is there a disability center or other organization that you used while in Europe for access?
Okay, why don't we open this up to any of our panelists, or does anybody in the audience have any answers to that? Any sort of disability organizations that you receive services from in Europe? It might also be like a disabled people's organization that you encountered that was helpful. That's a good question.
So in Estonia, the main organization that you would contact would be the Estonian Chamber of People with Disabilities. And under that organization, you can find member organizations such as the Estonian Union for the Blind and the Estonian Union for People with Mobility Impairments. And these organizations can provide services to you as well. Another thing that I wanted to come back to actually was when Abigail was asking about whether it is possible to receive any sort of funding or services as an international student with a disability. And in Estonia, the universities do have a stipend for students with special needs, which also can be received by international students as long as they are registered as residing in Estonia. And you can use the stipend to order different accommodation services that the university does not provide. For example, sign language interpretation.
Thanks, Elizabeth. That's a great comment. Thank you so much. Are you a member of any of those organizations by chance?
Yes, I am a member of the North Estonian Blind Union, and this organization does help me to receive like a special guidance type of service. So for example, when I need a guide to attend some sort of events or to move to between different places that I might not be familiar with, they do provide that service. And I also receive mobility lessons from that organization as well in order to learn new routes that I use.
Wow, that's really cool. That's really cool. Yeah, I know a lot of blind folks in the United States. Sometimes we can feel like if we're not like really excellent travelers, maybe travel isn't really a possibility, but like it sounds like you're finding, sounds like in your country, at least if you go to Estonia, you have, you could maybe get some extra support with even getting around. Does anybody else have any comment about disability organizations you encountered or, you know, services that you encountered in either, I don't know, Germany, the UK, or any, Joey, Lenny, let me know if there's any chat comments also.
Yeah, yeah, if people just want to send in their questions, you're also welcome to let us know if you want to use the audio and speak your question, or if you want to come on video, that's also welcomed. But I'm sure the panelists would love to answer some of the audience's questions, so please let us know.
And maybe also what I can do, if we're done with that question, is maybe bring up another, which is maybe just more broadly speaking, what, and kind of opening this to, you know, Elizabeth and Abby and Vibhu, just for your, you know, what is your, what would you kind of share as your sort of a reason for why, you know, somebody with or without a disability would come to your country to study or do an internship, the country that you visited? You know, what is sort of one of the what's kind of the best thing about your country, the thing that sort of sets it apart that maybe people outside, I mean, Elizabeth, I think you mentioned a couple of things earlier, the roots in technology. I didn't know Skype was from Estonia, but maybe just kind of also, you know, things that would make it attractive, maybe an extra thing that would make it attractive for a student or somebody seeking an internship. Maybe start with Vibhu.
So I think,
or actually, Elizabeth, sure.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Elizabeth,
so
yeah.
I think a couple of other things besides the information technology industry would be that as Estonia is a very small country, it is very easy to do internships and to create startups here as well. Another thing that you can do is to have a variety of different subjects that you want to study or focus on more, and you can play around with different careers here as well. And the third attractive thing that definitely attracts a lot of visitors in general as well is our culture and our music as well, because some of the most famous classical music composers in the world are actually from Estonia as well, such as Rahul.
Wow. So if you go to Estonia, you could go to a classical music concert, or you could study it even. What about
Yes.
What about Vibhu? Maybe what do you think as far as like what kind of reflecting on your master's degree in the United Kingdom, like what was the high point?
I would echo what I was previously saying, that people in general are generally more accepting. They seem to understand that disabilities.
Did you find it was pretty easy to meet people there?
I mean, I did not explore the social system too much because obviously I was busy with my master's, just a 1-year program, so that did not allow me much time on hand to find and meet people. But in general, the people that I came across, or I had a chance to work with, either when I was in the university or when I was volunteering at a school, I felt that people were much more accepting of you and saw disability as part of diversity and something which was normal. So to be honest, as a person with disability, I felt I was much more accepted in general by the society than I had felt in India. The second thing, which was also one of my favorite parts about being in the UK, was accessibility and availability of resources. So things, I mean, I felt I was more independent in terms of accessibility of websites or e-commerce apps, even in terms of transportation. They had a much better and a much accessible transportation system, better than New York at least. So yeah.
Thanks, Vibhu. And yeah, if you're for folks, she's working in New York right now for the United Nations, so that's where the comment from New York comes from. Abby, any thoughts? Kind of any high points? Did you any thoughts about like what it was like meeting people in Germany? What kind of one of your favorite things about Germany was?
Oh gosh, so kind of the opposite of Vibhu. I had way too much free time on my hands, and I'm such a people person that I loved being social. There was never a moment where I was not doing something. I think during the entirety of my entire time in Berlin, there was probably 1 or 2 days that I like stayed at the apartment and watched a movie. Like I was out all the time. And a lot of that was me just kind of exploring different parts of the city. And again, I am a social person. So just being able to interact with people was such a cultural experience in itself. In my perspective, I think that while Berlin, Germany is a German city, at the same time, it is so intercultural. I met so many different people from different parts of the world, whether it was in Africa or in Canada or South America. I met so many different people from all over the place. And I think that there was a mutual understanding of all these people from different parts of the world, that we were all there with the intensive purposes of learning from each other. And I can't speak for everybody's perspective, but I personally have observed me as a person who uses a wheelchair can kind of be, it's more of a visible disability. When people see me, they see my wheelchair first, as controversial as that may sound, but it makes me an intriguing person. So naturally, I have a lot of different people coming up to me, asking me questions. I'm never insulted when they are revolving around my disability, because I always try to put my personality first. So in a way, I think that my diverse qualities as a person with a disability allows me a really cool opportunity to interact with people, whether it's normal conversation or if it's about my disability. I love being able to interact with people from all different parts of the world. So my experiences in Berlin were really highlighted by just the diverse people that I got to meet.
Great. Just unmuting myself here. Great comments, Abby. And just as a friendly reminder, you can you can chat comments or questions to Joey Lenny. And also, if you want to speak or sign, you just tell Joey Lenny and she can hook you up. So great comments, Abby. Actually, yeah, I think that's one of the things we don't realize when you go to another country. You also get to meet people from a variety of different places. You're not just interacting with Germans, but also people from the Middle East, from Africa, from wherever, United States, UK, everywhere else where where international students or international individuals are attracted. Elizabeth, how do you have any? I mean, you're pretty good at meeting people. Any thoughts for any tips or suggestions for how people with disabilities might meet folks in Estonia if they were to come?
So I think a key thing that anyone with a disability in Estonia should be prepared for is that there is still quite a lot of hesitation around people with disabilities, especially in academic settings. Professors and teachers are not always sure what they should be doing. So I think whenever you meet someone new or are in facing circumstances where you feel like people might not come and speak to you as freely as they otherwise would, I think it is important to encourage people to ask questions and talk about your disability. Maybe do even presentations in the setting that you are facing. So for example, in your university class or whatever other type of academic setting you are in. And another way is definitely to be involved in all sorts of activities that the university does offer, and even go up to people and ask them if they would be willing to join the activities with you and help you out. And this is a really good conversation starter as well, I've experienced.
That's great. Great comments. Yeah, it's kind of one of the strands I'm hearing here, I think both from Abby and Elizabeth, and you know, and just as a reminder, you can choose gallery view to hide non-video participants. There's a triple dot over each blank square, and you just click that, and I believe there's an option in there to hide non-video participants. Yeah, sometimes our need for assistance can actually be a strength in meeting people. And I actually was speaking with a blind friend the other day who would go to the train station in his city. And when he would find somebody with his cane, he would just say, "Oh, excuse me." And they would just say, "No problem." And then he would take the chance to start up a conversation with them. And he actually found his first job doing that. So that can definitely be an opportunity, actually, more than, you know, needing help from other people. It sounds like that's kind of how you've maybe been able to meet friends, Elizabeth. Does that sound kind of like a fair characterization?
Yes, I think so. I think in both Estonia and when I was in the United States, because there I was also at the town where I was living in, I was also the first blind student that attended the school where I went to. So it was definitely something that I did a lot, and it helped me out.
Thank you. Yeah. So we have about 2 minutes left of the session. So Joey, Lenny, do you see any comments or questions in the chat?
No, there are no questions right now, but if anyone, if you want to wrap it up, and we can invite everyone to either share their video if they'd like to, or if they have a last minute question that they want to ask as well.
Okay, great. So, well, thank you everybody for joining us for this session. I really appreciated the chance to hear from our panelists. And I know Joey Lenny, you've been pretty quiet. Joey Lenny, I don't know if everyone knows, she actually studied in the United Kingdom too. So she's got some insights into that area. But, you know, I guess at this point, I think, and I just want to also let everybody know, kind of as we're signing off here, that in about 20 minutes at 3:15 Eastern time, we're going to be starting our next set of regional forums, and you will have the choice between Latin America or Asia Pacific. And I think either one is going to be a great choice, but yours truly is going to be on the Latin America forum. So I think that one will definitely have a competitive edge. Anyway, just my humble 2 cents. So anyway, with that, everybody, you're welcome to turn on your videos and wave goodbye. Goodbye, everybody. I don't know if anyone else wants to turn on their videos. And with that, thank you so much all. Enjoy the rest of the conference and have a great rest of your week as well. Bye.